Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Barry Levine, author of The Spider, Inside the Criminal Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Barry, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me on.
There's blockbuster news, and I'm very excited for you to come on here and help us make sense of it, help us break it down. More than 150 names associated with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein were unsealed on Wednesday. So first, what's your reaction to the list?
Well, my reaction is I think it's wonderful that we're learning more because there's so much new interest in the case that for me, the goal of all of this is for the Justice Department or the senators to finally unravel, the list of those Jeffrey Epstein clients, the men who are still remaining in the shadows that have gotten away with sexual abuse. And I think by the release of these documents, it's going to help us get there.
You're the author of The Spider, Inside the Criminal Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So you're the expert here. Did anything surprise you in these documents? Did you learn anything since they were released on Wednesday?
Well, we've only seen 45 documents thus far. We have dozens more to come. There's thousands of pages of documents that we have to go through that are being unmasked for the first time. I myself, having investigated this case for a couple of years, I know most of the names here. However, what is great is that we are learning, we are filling in some of the blanks in terms of getting to read for the first time some of the actual depositions of some of the victims. For instance, Joanna Schoberg, who came out in the deposition yesterday. We learned a great deal. We learned some information about Bill Clinton. We learned more about Prince Andrew. Donald Trump's name was mentioned. And little tidbits about the relationship between Epstein and Maxwell and the victims, how Ghislaine Maxwell viewed herself, to quote Joanna, as the mother hen. These are all interesting pieces of the puzzle that we're still learning a few years after Jeffrey Epstein's death in his jail cell.
You named some big names that were revealed yesterday, but it was speculated they would be revealed anyway. Those names like former presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, former Vice President Al Gore, Prince Andrew, just to name a few. So can you walk us through how Jeffrey Epstein was essentially able to immerse himself in this really influential world?
Well, I think these documents play a role in showing us how Jeffrey Epstein leveraged his connections to the rich and famous, powerful celebrities to not only enhance the relationships he had with those individuals, but also to impress the victims that they were recruiting in this sex trafficking ring. You have to understand that this all came about in a way when Maxwell and some of other Jeffrey Epstein's associates recruited these girls and promised them help with money to go to college or going to art school or going to music school. Jeffrey Epstein continually used the name dropping of these celebrities to entice these girls and to help them understand the big world that he was in.
As you said, we learned new things from these depositions. You said, namely, from former President Bill Clinton as well as Prince Andrew. So is what we learned, is that damning for either of them? Because both of them have denied any wrongdoing.
Yeah, you have to understand that there is, in this world of social media where everybody is looking for this client list, there is a horrible guilt by association of any of the rich and famous who are mentioned in these documents. That's not to say that these documents specifically incriminate individuals with sexual abuse. Now, there are a few individuals that we were aware of that have been reiterated and named in these documents. All of these men, of course, have denied any wrongdoing, but you've had men like Prince Andrew, Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, the French modeling agent who was a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, Jean-Luc Brunel. You've had Glenn Dubin, the hedge fund billionaire. There's specific accusations in these documents of sexual abuse. And as I repeat, these are accusations that have previously come out before in various court cases, in interviews, and in the public. Yet once again, they're thrust into this horrible spotlight. Then you have a second group of individuals, including Trump, Bill Clinton, magician David Copperfield, Leonardo DiCaprio, Michael Jackson, hairdresser Frederick Fekkai, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, Naomi Campbell, Al Gore. These are individuals that have been referenced in the papers that are not specifically, have not been specifically named in terms of any type of abuse, but there is, again, guilt by association. These are individuals that Jeffrey Epstein had over the house for dinner, that he traveled with, that he made phone calls to. So it broadens greatly what we know about his world and the way he manipulated individuals. And as I've reported in my book, The Spider, a lot of these associations, particularly with the men that we are aware of who have been accused of wrongdoing, led to, as I reported, blackmail and so forth that helped enrich Jeffrey Epstein over the years.
This dominated social media, dominated headlines, was the A block of a lot of news programs. But I am curious, because we have heard these names before trickle out in years. Is this a bombshell? Would you characterize that as?
Well, I think we have to wait till we review all of the documents in their entirety. There are bits and pieces that when you look with a magnifying glass, you find some really troubling things. Something that really troubled me last night when I was reviewing these documents was a deposition that came forward that talked about magician David Copperfield being at a dinner where he specifically talked to a young woman and said to that woman, "Are you aware that these girls are being used to recruit other girls?" Now, if that, and again, we have not heard from David Copperfield since then, so he hasn't been able to defend himself with this dinner conversation. However, you have, what it shows is that way back when this was in its early stages, well before many victims, or many young women were victimized, that there were individuals like a David Copperfield who were able to kind of see through what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein, and that these individuals, as far as we know, did not alert authorities as to what was going on. So that is troubling to me.
That one was alarming for sure, but I am curious. I do want to note first that just because a name does appear on the list doesn't confirm any wrongdoing. But what does it confirm and what does it not confirm? Does it just confirm how large Jeffrey Epstein's orbit really was when it comes to the rich, the powerful, the influential?
Yeah, I mean, this is a story of power, sex, royalty, politics. The abundance of these names, these A-list names, politicians, royals, celebrities, top scientists, top lawyers, shows the world how Jeffrey Epstein, as I said, leveraged these connections that he made with these individuals. As I said, 99% of these names have not been accused of any wrongdoing. However, Jeffrey Epstein is such a, his story is so criminal in nature and so horrific as to the crimes that were committed that anyone who associated with him, of course, is going to be scrutinized as to well, how could you hang out with this individual? How could you go out to dinner with him? Now, I do want to emphasize that these names that are appearing in these documents really are confined to the period of time before Jeffrey Epstein was sentenced in Florida in 2005, where he pled guilty to prostitution with a minor and received, as we know, what's been called the slap on the wrist conviction. At the time when these names, like Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Al Gore, were being associated with Jeffrey Epstein at that time had not committed any crimes. We're not going to get into, through these documents, Jeffrey Epstein's life after his conviction. And for another 10 years after that conviction, which I find more damning in the sense, is that there were individuals, powerful people, like Bill Gates and Leon Black, the financial wizard, a billionaire here in New York, who associated with him after his conviction. Again, these men have not been accused of wrongdoing, but Jeffrey Epstein began associations with individuals like the Bill Gates or Leon Black after he was already named as a sexual offender. The individuals named in the batch of papers that are coming out were in the period of time before the Palm Beach police began looking into him in 2005.
I do want to talk about a name you brought up. It has been coming up, and that is former President Donald Trump. And in your book, The Spider, you write that the Trump candidacy survived Epstein. But now we're in 2024. Trump is a candidate again for president. Do you think he will survive it again this year?
Well, I mean, listen, as I reported in my book, Jeffrey Epstein said to a close associate that he had information on Donald Trump. What's interesting is just this week, before these documents were dropped, Jeffrey Epstein's remaining sibling, his brother, came forward to say a quite shocking statement that Jeffrey Epstein had information that, had he put it out before the 2016 election, would have hurt not only Donald Trump but also the Clintons. So, how far the brother is going to go as we get into the campaign remains to be seen. But I think there could still be some important news that very well could drop.
This obviously, like we said earlier, has been a headline-grabbing story. So I'm curious about what your thoughts are to the media's response. Do you think they're doing a good job covering this as these documents are being uncovered? Or do you think, additionally, there's anything missing from the national conversation, since you are the expert?
Well, I think certainly, these documents are coming out now where we've never had such powerful social media. And I have to tell you, I was up all night reviewing documents and also the coverage. And it was indistinguishable on social media as in terms of legitimate news publications putting out the information versus, people sitting at their kitchen tables. And there was so much misinformation that was put out. I scrolled through probably 30 straight posts, and all of them contained erroneous information, falsehoods. It is quite shocking. I think where the media needs to go next is really to use the momentum that's come forward now again on Jeffrey Epstein, and to really push the Justice Department. And Senator Marsha Blackburn has come out saying she wants to get to the bottom of all of the flight logs to see if there's individuals that should face some type of prosecution. There's still so much that we don't know. There was maybe the best story to hit the past few weeks. The Wall Street Journal 2 weeks ago did an excellent report citing the fact that there's more than 20 men that are known in confidential court papers that Jeffrey Epstein had put out his young girls and young underage girls and young women too for sexual favors. These men have not been investigated. These men have not been prosecuted yet. So, there is still so much more to do. And I'm hoping that with this renewed interest in the Epstein case right now, that whether it's the Justice Department or a special counsel or through congressional investigation, that we get down to the bottom of all of the flight logs, that we get complete transparency on all of the men that Jeffrey Epstein associated with. Because until we get to that period of time, all the victims in this case the survivors in this case will never really receive justice.
As we're sitting here right now, more documents are expected to be unsealed in the coming weeks. So what should we look out for next? What's on your radar?
Well, of course, drilling down on these depositions that are being unmasked, is certainly interesting. Looking for tidbits that connect pieces of information that we know from the puzzle. The more names that become completely transparent, the more that we will really be able to understand the complexity of this story. And you have to understand that there has been dozens and dozens and dozens of lawsuits that have been filed in the years. We've had Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who really, it was her case against Ghislaine Maxwell, the defamation case. That's really where these documents are coming from. That was a case that was settled a few years ago when Ghislaine Maxwell had to pay damages to Virginia Roberts Giuffre. These are documents that remain from that particular case that had been sealed, and now for the first time the judge has decided that we're going to be able to see all the names. So I think while we know the nucleus of the story, it really is important for there to be complete transparency. Now, there are some names of some of the minor victims that are still going to remain confidential, that are still going to remain sealed, which is, of course, the right thing to do. There's an individual who lives in a foreign country who has expressed to the court that if this individual's name comes forward, that the person can face serious issues where she lives. So, of course, let's protect those minor victims. But in terms of the others, in terms of the men, the associates, the people who had the dinners with Jeffrey Epstein, let's learn about all of them, and let's learn about really what they knew and what they knew at the time. Going back to what I said earlier about David Copperfield, this is somebody, a big entertainer who pretty much figured out exactly what was going on way back when. But as far as we know, he didn't tell anybody. He didn't go to any authorities. But again, this is the nature of this case. One victim, as we know, went to the FBI early on in this case. And it was more than 10 years before the FBI went back to her and finally interviewed her. So, the most troubling thing is that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell got away with this for so long when so many people knew what was happening, but didn't raise their hands and didn't shout from the rooftops and didn't bring in the authorities early on. So that's to me the most troubling aspect of this.
I really appreciate you coming on here, providing your insights, and as more does come to light, Barry Levine, I hope you come back on and join me and break it down. Thank you again for joining me.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on.